Welcome to another episode of Barman Saturdays, and this week I decided to take a look at the final movie in this four-pack, Eggy. Which I have to admit right off the bat, that name annoys the crap out of me to some extent, because this movie, was a sequel to Pet Pals. It was originally released underneath the title Pet Pals in Windland, and then they changed it to Eggy. And I don't get why entirely. I mean, my best educated guess is they're either trying to disassociate themselves with Pet Pals because that movie had a reputation for being bad, so they didn't want parents to realize, they were buying a sequel movie, to a bad movie they may have already previously purchased. Or two, it was an attempt to cash in on Easter movies by calling it Eggy and then, putting the baby chick, in a prominent position on the box. I'd be like, oh, it's some sort of weird Easter type movie, so I can buy that for my kids for Easter, I guess. I don't know why they wouldn't go with the classic, about Peter Cottontail, that old claymation movie from forever ago. But to each their own, I guess. But gosh darn it, like those are the only two reasons that really come to mind. Maybe there's some other motivation, but I don't see it. And I honestly don't like the name change anyway, because even if Eggy gets a bit more of a focus as a main character in this movie, the other pet pals are still very prominent. So it feels like, if you're making an Avengers movie and decide to call it Iron Man or Captain America or Black Widow, and yet all the other Avengers are there, constantly helping out most of the movie. Like, why aren't you acknowledging their existence? Like, it's just not fair to them, considering how prominent they are. They deserve to be in the title if you're going to name it after the protagonist. Outside of my issues, with the whole naming convention of the movie, since I spent about 2 minutes complaining about that stuff, I suppose, I'm not particularly fond of the Crow Witch as a villain. Mainly because they don't give her real motivation. I mean, she openly admits in the film when she's asked why she wants to destroy the town of Puff that she's doing it because she's evil. That's it. That's her whole motivation. She doesn't have any plans that she's going to implement after destroying Puff, like declaring herself the new queen of Windland or whatever. She's like, I'm just going to wreck Puff just cuz. Like an RPG gamer, going after a powerful monster just cuz. And even there, the motivations usually prove, that they're the best swordsmen or whatever in the world, and that they can deal with these powerful monsters. I mean, there's usually something more to it than just cuz, like, give me something. But they're like, nope, that's all the motivation we're going to give her. She's just evil. Outside of that, the movie tends to have stuff keep going on happening to keep people interested, or at least wanting to try and follow things, though I'll admit the movie sometimes makes cuts and decisions that make it a bit harder to follow than I like, or make no sense. Like, there's a scene where we see Eggy trying to get back into the giant flying robot the Crow Witch now controls, and he sneaks behind her and opens up the hatch, only for her to pop up out of the hatch, despite the fact she hadn't previously noticed him as far as we could tell. So how did she know to, be ready to come up through the hatch when he popped it open? Weird cuts like that, that just don't make any sense. Just crop up quite a bit in the film. The film also does the Dora the Explorer route of asking the audience to do certain things, like the Elmo movie did. You're like, we need you to blow, kids, to give us more lift to get, over this mountain. And then they'll be like, oh, that's too much, it's too much. Like, stop it, kids. Or they'll ask the audience to tell them where to go to find the villain's lair, because the villains are dumb enough to tell the audience. So you have a lot of interactions between the villains and heroes with breaking the fourth wall, which, is either going to appeal to you or not appeal to you. Depends on your perspective on that. I mean, it definitely indicates the film's definitely aimed for probably a younger demographic, so it's hard for me to really pick on it for doing that, because there's not really much there for an adult audience, like I said, with such weak character motivations, for the villain and whatnot, for doing what they're doing. We have good guys that are good, and bad guys that are bad, and that's all you really need to know about them. So, yeah, Iggy's alright, I suppose, for the demographic it's aimed for, though some parents might argue it's a bit overly violent, because we have a scene where the Crow Witch tries to cut Eggy down using a chainsaw, which he defeats comically, or she tries taking him out with an axe, which he defeats by using magnets to constantly pull the head of the axe all over the place. So we get some cartoon-esque violence, but no blood or people really getting hurt. We just see people trying to use weapons against the main character. Until next time, then. See ya.